person some I hardly recognize you all and see the three-dimensional selves. Welcome everybody and thank you, Mayor Spano and everybody from St. Louis Park to allow us to be the very first in-person meeting here.
You're paying rent though, right? I mean,
yes, our usual government rate. So all I think it involves a beverage, as I understand. But again, just a couple of housekeeping things. This is an in-person meeting, but it is live streamed, and in fact, just a note, those who are sitting around the table, these microphones you see before you do not have a mute option. So I know when we're at home, we're all used to calling, saying to our family and saying nasty sidebar conversations. These are hot mics. They don't mute. Whatever chatter you might say, excuse me, whatever important things you say are going to be picked up by the microphones. So this is, and I know we're going to have introductions, but I just want to say John Pacheco is our newest council member from this district, and welcome. And I saw him after this meeting, he's no longer new, so we're going to start introducing you as new, because this is a lot of first time you've come to a Green Line CMC meeting. Also, meeting handouts and presentations are going to be posted on the website. That's Green Line EXT, that's one word, greenlineext.org. And so, why don't we get started by introducing ourselves, and it's so much easier when it's not Hollywood squares on a screen. We can just go around the table. So I already started. I'm Charlie Zelli. I'm chair of the CMC and chair of the Met Council.
I'm John Pacheco, and I'm the new person, I guess, just till the next meeting. I can say that on the Met Council. But I'll remind everyone here, I was on the council in '92. So it's been a little while to come back, but I do know what it is.
Good.
Sort of like the second Godfather movie, right? Just when you thought you were out, they pulled you back. I'm Jake Spano, Mayor of St. Louis Park.
Rebecca Fabelme for Mayor Fry's office, City of Minneapolis.
I'm Brad Wierson, Mayor of Minnetonka.
And I'm Julie Wishnack. I'm a speaker today. I'm the Community Development Director for Minnetonka.
Good afternoon, Dave Lindahl. I'm the Economic Development Manager for the City of Eden Prairie, here to present about Eden Prairie Development.
Hi, I'm Sarah Gondor, and I'm sitting in for Mike Barnes for MnDOT today.
I'm Nick Thompson, Deputy General Manager of Metro Transit.
And I'm Debbie Gotel, Hennepin County Commissioner, and Marion Green is on her way, our chair, so she will be here.
Wow.
And I'm Dawn Hoffner with Project Office.
Why doesn't she have a tent?
So we get a 10 next time.
She's too important. I don't know. Let me get the time for you. And I know we have Commissioner Green as well as Mayor Hovland said he's running a little late, but we expect a few people to join us. But let's get into some of the business. First off, on our agenda, the minutes were sent out Friday for review. That was the minutes from the last meeting of February 2nd. So if there's any edits or questions, I'm happy to entertain that. Otherwise, would entertain a motion and a second.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. Which takes us to the chair's update, of which I will just be, I think I've already updated. I'm just thrilled we're in person. There's a lot that has been happening on almost on a week-by-week basis, but it's really important, I think, to have these kind of CMC meetings. We're having them with more frequency now, but obviously as any updates are coming, we will let people know as they happen. And I also think it's a great opportunity for us to kind of step back and look at the big picture, and particularly these updates from our city development. And as I think a number of, I hear this kind of a county commissioner saying, we're not waiting for the benefits are happening. And I really appreciate that. And this is something I think we can really hear about now. So let's just jump into the main substance of our meeting. First, we're going to hear from Julie Wishnak from the city of Minnetonka, and followed by David Lindahl, who's the Economic Development Manager from Eden Prairie. And I know you have PowerPoint, so I'll hand it off to you.
We do, thank you. I have a lot of slides, so some of it's just eye candy for you to look at. And I know a lot of people spend time on the outside of the building, so some of this is inside the building, so it's hopefully a little bit of excitement about what's going on in these projects that I've probably talked about before, but you haven't seen in real life actually constructed. So, oh, thank you. And we'll just skip over the fast facts of Minnetonka, but just so you know, we're about 54,000 people, about $12 billion of real estate value in the city. And I give that stat to you because I think it's important when you see the kind of construction that's going on, how much value of construction is going on in relation to the actual city overall value. We've been doing prep studies with the group, the Community Works Group, for a long time. We've done Opus Station placemaking design guidelines. We've inputted a lot about public space in Opus, and so there's a lot of planning going on. We did an environmental review for the entire Opus area. It's a 640-acre area for redevelopment, and that helped us decide what kinds of improvement projects. This is one of the improvement projects that we want to provide for the kind of off of the station area. So kind of if you're standing at the Opus station, if you've been out to that area and you're looking toward the east, this is kind of the viewpoint that we're trying to create with a public park and amenity space. And it also would be for all of the thousands of units literally that are going in this area, as well as kind of some of the redevelopment with industrial, light industrial buildings that are already in that park. So we have asked for state bonding money, and so if you're in that realm at all, please put a good word in for us because we're actually trying to build this in the next couple of years, and we think it's about $13.5 million to do what we have on the maps here, but it's quite ambitious, so there's a lot of things that have to come together to make this happen. One of the key points that I was trying to portray in that discussion about why that public space was important is because, you know, half of the new housing units that we have in Opus are affordable. They're contractually affordable. So that's a really good stat, I think, and it shows that we need to invest in our public space out in Opus. Also, there's a lot of naturally affordable rents already in Opus, as well as naturally occurring ownership. So on Green Circle Drive, for instance, which is north of the station area, you can buy a condominium unit for about $220,000. So really good ownership as well as rental in this park. This is Opus Park. On the east side of that map is 169-62 Crosstown on the bottom and Shady Oak on the left side. Hopkins would be to the north, so the southeast pocket of Minnetonka. I put yellow marks on the plan where there's development pending or just constructed or completed. So these are the sites that are being developed. So the Rise has been open for a couple of years, 322 units. There is about 10% affordable. We actually didn't have to support this with any public financing, which was really neat. However, the flip side of that is, and I want to show you the sale because there has been a sale already of this property in 2020 for $93 million. That's about $237,000 per unit. So you can see what's happening to the market even without anything really alive and happening with light rail. There's still transactional things happening that are quite expensive. The Rise is a beautiful building. You can kind of see some of the vistas that you're able to get off the top amenity deck, and you can kind of see some of the finishes. Really great project. Again, about 322 units. This project, the mayor and I were out last week for the groundbreaking of this project. This has been through a few iterations. The Minnetonka Station project, which is now the more orange on the kind of bottom part of this slide, is about 250 units of housing, and there's 20% affordable in this area as well at 50% AMI, so really excellent project. I think what's really neat about this, and again, if you're having trouble with orientation, because everybody does in Opus, this is east, and then the station area would be to the north. So this is kind of the look of the building. I think the point about this investment is this is not a local developer that's investing in this. This is someone from Pennsylvania, so there's national attention and investment. The project before, the Rise, also was a national investor and had definitely been interested because of light rail. Then moving into Dominion, you've seen this picture before, but this is, I just want to remind you, the light rail is here, and now we're looking west. And so this is the really large project that we've been working on for many years. This is kind of looking the opposite direction, more to the east, light rail being in this location, and then this is all housing, affordable housing, both senior and workforce. And so there's, again, 482 units at 60% AMI. It was done through tax credits as well as local city TIF dollars. $8 million of city TIF was issued to this project, and really had a really good end result, I think. The building is quite beautiful. You can see the finishes are quite lovely. There's a lot of amenity space built into this project, as well as it's just right across the street from light rail. I think some of the challenges with this project is we thought light rail was opening next year, and so we thought maybe we'd back up parking, and you know, there's been some definite parking challenges in the area, but I think we're going to get over those pretty soon in terms of, we've figured out some things from the project. There's a school up here, and because of the light rail project, you've cut off access to the school, so there's been some kind of construction related issues, but we're again working through all of those. As you can see too, it's a very sustainable project. There's solar throughout on the rooftop. You can kind of see that coming up on the aerial photo. And then this whole building is the senior building, and this is the workforce. So really great project, all occupied on the workforce side. About 60, I think I heard 65% on the senior side is occupied. Some of the interior shots, again, really great amenity space and really nice looking finishes in each of the units. And so when people talk about affordable housing, I always like to show them the inside, because that really makes it important in terms of this is not a lower grade finish, if you will, when you talk about affordable housing. Another project underway is by Doran Companies. That's 350 units. If you're familiar with where Yum is one of my favorite restaurants. And so I love to go to Yum, but Yum is right to the south of this, as well as some other strip mall area in Caribou, Holiday Inn is down here. So this project is currently under construction. Framing is happening right now. This project has 15% affordable, and we were able to get 50, 60, and 80% area median income rents. And what was interesting about this project, and I promised to be at 15 minutes, I have to check my watch. I have 5 minutes exactly left. I think the interesting thing about this project is we were able to negotiate with the developer to get that extra affordability. Our policy actually only calls for 10% in this case, but because he was able to get a little bit of a stratification of the affordability, what was interesting is we used money from our tax increment pooling affordable housing trust fund, which is money we put aside, and we were approved to do that by the legislature. And it didn't pigeonhole us into one certain AMI level, which was really quite helpful and a really good use of our funds. So we're going to do that again, I think. Lots of trail stuff, though, going on, lots of trail coordination, lots of coordination with the adjoining properties in this project. This is what it'll look like. Again, the Shady Oak area is right off to the left of this map. Then we have the Wellington project. This is a 200 and, I have to get my numbers right in my head, 234 unit building, first phase. Second phase would be about 250 units, so 500 overall-ish. This has 20% affordable, but they do have below market rents, so a little bit different scenario. So you can see in Opus, we were trying to kind of meld all of these projects together and get the affordability to mix in with what we already had in Opus. And it was kind of a, I'm looking at Brad here because it was kind of a a real mind game that you were playing about, well, what's new, what's existing, what's contractual, what will be long-term. So there was quite a bit of analysis and work to make sure that actually ended up to be the right mix. And we continue to struggle with that as new projects come forward. 223, sorry, I should have looked at my slide. 23 of the units are at 50, and 45 units are 80, and then 155 are unrestricted. And so this is a little bit smaller graphic, but what it shows you is, I think, if you interviewed each of these developers, local and national, they will tell you that light rail is not the only reason they're here. We have a great market anyway for apartments, especially in this area. They will tell you there's an additive, there's a kind of bonus, if you will, for light rail development. I think that's what we're getting here in Minnetonka. If you added up all these projects together, and again, this is building permit value, don't use this as your appraised value in the end, but about $261 million of influx of development that I would say, if you ask me, is it light rail related, and I would say yes. So about 260, which is kind of a strong number. And if you don't know Opus, you know, they have about 14,000 employees in Opus, so beyond the housing part of this is a real employment center. And that's expected to grow as well with, you know, places like United Health Group and Digital River and Boston Scientific and some of those other really major companies that sit in Opus. So I think, you know, this housing and working kind of environment will continue to keep this area very, very strong. And, you know, it took a lot of work on the city's part. Not only did we have partners at the state level in terms of tax credits and that sort of thing to get this construction of homes, we actually set up a TIF district for the entire area. And we said, how much development and infrastructure do we need to build? And so the tax increment from all of these projects is flowing into some of those new road projects. For instance, we need a new intersection at the Doran project. We need a new stoplight, we need new lanes, etc. But the whole area is paying for that, not just one developer. So hopefully we took a little bit more holistic view than a kind of one project, then the next project, etc. Lots of coordination though with all of what's going on. Every time we turn around, a bridge is coming out, a trail's getting improved, lighting's going in. So I think for the people that live here, either they have lived here for a long time or they are new to this area as a resident, they're tired of the construction. But we go out and we visit and we have events for people to try to keep them engaged and hopefully satisfied with what's going on, because the Longview is, of course, a really cool, transit-friendly, and kind of suburban area of Minnetonka. So with that, I am done with Minnetonka. Thank you.
Well done.
How did I do? Yes, right on time.
Perfect.
Okay.
I'm going the right way.
Oh, you gotta go, oh, I just had lots of other slides that I didn't go through.
Yes, you did.
Keep going.
There you go.
All right, tough act to follow. What's going on? Eden Prairie, kind of like Minnetonka, has a lot of development activity happening, and I'm going to share kind of everything that's happening within the corridor through Eden Prairie. You know, is it all because of light rail? I would say not exactly, but I would say that every conversation we've had with developers that are doing these projects are aware of light rail and agree that light rail will help their project one way or another. Either it's going to bring customers or help the residents. So I'll kind of take you through my slides. So just to kind of review the alignment that goes through Eden Prairie, you know, kind of comes from Minnetonka, runs through the city west. You know, these triangles represent the station areas. This is our Golden Triangle, which is a very big business park. It's about 25,000 employees pre-COVID. You know, about 10 million square feet of space. So there's a lot of businesses, a lot of employees in the area. This is our second station, the Golden Triangle, and the third station is in the town center, right by the mall. This is the Eden Prairie Center. And then, as you all probably well know, it terminates at Southwest Station. So the yellow dots represents the projects that I will talk about a little bit here today. So kind of starting at the top. We've got some industrial development, which is still good. I mean, a lot of Eden Prairie's industrial development in the Golden Triangle is kind of late 70s, mid 80s, lower ceiling heights. This is the first project we've had in years that has like a 32-foot ceiling, and it's a spec building, but they've already got a tenant lined up that looks like they're coming from Bloomington. It's a 65,000 square foot building. Oops. Oh, okay.
Oh,
I'll look this way, but if I can't see it, turn around, sorry. I'll do my best. So yeah, so it's a 65,000 square foot building, and the value looks like it's going to be around $6 million when that's completed. I wanted to share this. You know, this isn't a new development. This is an existing business that came in 2017, but they specifically, it's a distillery called Flying Dutchman. If you haven't been there, you got to try it. They have a great product. But they worked with me for about 2 years, and they wanted to be by a light rail station. And so they picked this location. If you can kind of see the little yellow dot, it's basically about a block from the station. And so they are disappointed by the delays, and their business is doing fine. But you know, I wanted to share that this was a business that really wanted to be by light rail. Okay, this is kind of the latest development that is just got approved last night. Final approval won't get started this weekend, but this is right by the GTA station. So you can kind of see the Golden Triangle Station platform here. And this will be a two-phase project. It'll be about 425 units total. 25% of those units will be affordable. I think most of those at about 50% of the median for the metro area. But there's a nice wetland here. Here's another kind of shot of it, some different angles. But this is being done by Greco. First time they've done anything in Eden Prairie, and they're really a great group to work with. But 425 units, 25% affordable. You know, the total value I don't know yet, but it's good. It's a lot. It's likely to be, you know, north of $60–70 million. This is another industrial project that Opus did, and it's up, and a new business had moved in. It was a spec building, again, like 32-foot ceiling. It's about a block from the Golden Triangle Station. And again, they liked the site either way, but we talked a lot about light rail, and we talked a lot about what it was going to take to make connections between that building and the light rail station. And there are some sidewalks and things that need to be completed, which we're working on right now, but a great new development, 130,000 square feet, and it looks like it's about a $13 million value. This is an example of not a new development, but a reinvestment in one of our top Class A office buildings, 1 Southwest Crossing. When the last major tenant left this building, it sat vacant for a while. And Eagle Ridge Partners, which is a developer that's really active in Eden Prairie right now, bought the building, and they put a major investment in the building, and they kind of redid the atrium, which you can see, and they kind of did all the great things that office buildings are doing now to try to attract people. And they basically are at about 90% leased at this point, so it's really been a success story. And again, Eagle Ridge kind of owns that area where Greco is and where that project is. They own that entire area. They're very much aware of what's happening with light rail, and I think they're being aggressive with their investments because of the light rail project in Eden Prairie. Pizza Lucci bought an existing restaurant. It sunk up a lot of money into it and kind of rebranded it, and they've been open now for about 2 or 3 years, and that's kind of right down in this area by the mall, but you know, not too far from the GTA station. This is a new office development. It's a development for Norson Contracting, and if you can kind of see, that's kind of up here closer to the town center station. I don't really know what the value of that project will be, but it's about a 15,000 square foot office building. This is an existing an existing apartment project in Eden Prairie, where a new owner came in, and there were office suites on the lower level that weren't performing very well, so they converted most of those to housing, all affordable, and made a new investment. And this is basically right next to the town center station. The mall, I just wanted to share this with you a little bit. I think many of you might be familiar that our mall used to have a Sears, and I think Julie's familiar with Sears as well, and they languished for years. And fortunately, they sold to the former owners of the mall, and they found Shields. And there's a long story about that I could tell you. It'd take a half hour, but it was at the end a very good story. But Shields has been just a great success. They built a 250,000 square foot store in Eden Prairie. It opened in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. But they're just knocking it out of the park. They're doing really well, and they're increasing foot traffic through the Eden Prairie Center, which is needed. You know, about a $27 million value on that property. And again, because of light rail, no, but it's like, you know, aware of light rail and knowing that potentially, you know, people could come on the train in Eden Prairie and walk or scooter or micro mobility their way to the mall. Okay, this is, we've had a lot of housing projects too. This is a senior housing project that's just south of the mall called Southview. That's up and running, 166 units. That's about a $30 million value, really nice project. This is another pretty exciting redevelopment in Eden Prairie. Formerly it was Broadmoor Apartments and Castle Ridge Nursing Facility. It's about 18 acres, and it's being redeveloped into senior apartments, general occupancy apartments, and some commercial, and I'll kind of get into this a little bit more. So the top project, which is open now, and they're actually having the grand opening event on Thursday, is Flagstone, that was built by Presbyterian Homes. And by the way, Presbyterian Homes, own that entire campus. And they brought in other partners like Timberland Partners, who did the Paravel, the project below, and then also Abadan, who's doing the commercial piece. But they built this new senior project, which really turned out nice. It's got it's about an $80 million value, and that was just recently completed. Paravel Apartments, that's estimated to be about an $80 million value too. That's 246 units. That's under construction now, so there's a lot of activity in this area. The grocery store, it's kind of the worst kept secret. It's Amazon Fresh. They just won't admit it. Under construction, that's expected to be completed this summer, and then there'll be a Chick-fil-A next to that and a bank next to that, so that's a great new redevelopment. It's kind of like the distillery, Fat Pants Brewery. Again, they worked with me and looked at a lot of different sites in Eden Prairie. They wanted to be at least relatively close to a station. They found this location, which isn't far from our town center station, and they're doing very well. Their initial build-out was 10,000 square feet. They're doing so well, they added another 2,700 square feet, which they call a hotspot for live music and other things, and it's a great place, and it's doing well. So this is another existing restaurant that sat vacant for, unfortunately, about 2.5 years through COVID. And a developer named Ned Abdul came in, bought the property, and he's kind of repurposing it. He's dividing it into 3 bays. 1 will be a restaurant, 2 will be retail, but he's refacing the entire building, and he's putting a lot of money into it. I don't know the total value yet because he's kind of still in the process, but a great new investment. This is one of the more exciting things happening in Eden Prairie. The former Gander Outdoors, which again sat for a number of years after they closed. And I mean, we saw everything from mini storage wanting to be there and lots of other, I would say, somewhat undesirable uses. And along came this idea to convert this into an Asian mall, and it's really pretty cool. It's almost 100,000 square feet. It'll have a large market and kind of grocery component on the main level, and then lots of restaurants on the upper level. And you know, they're saying it's going to have the largest live seafood selection kind of store in the Twin Cities, and you'll be hearing more about it. But it's really kind of a great reuse of an existing building.
That one was just on the news, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, they're really promoting it pretty heavily. Culver's used to be located at Southwest Station, and they got bumped. Unfortunately, found a site across the street, and it's still really close to that station, and they're doing very well. In fact, this was like one of our problem properties during COVID because of the drive-through. I mean, they had so much business, it was like going all the way through to the streets. Yeah. You probably had similar issues in Minnetonka. Right. Hampton Inn, this is a fairly new hotel, which unfortunately they opened kind of right in the middle of COVID too, but a great new redevelopment, and it's right close to the town center station. EP Multifamily, that is another apartment project that we're looking at right now. They are in the process, and that's kind of over just north of kind of the Menards area. And that'll have kind of what's typical in Eden Prairie now and probably similar to Minnetonka. Everything that comes in, we try to get at least 25% of the units affordable at varying levels. Mostly at like with people with incomes at 50% of the median for the metro area, some a little higher. And then finally, kind of, I think you all are well aware of the Elevate project, but this is the Southwest Station area and kind of this whole area up here, which used to have a Ruby Tuesdays and an Anchor Bank, was redeveloped into Elevate, which is a true, TOD development. They opened up late in 2019 and kind of suffered through construction. I don't know, where's James? He's kind of knows a lot about that, yeah. But the good news is they're about 95% occupied. They're doing very well. It's got a 14,000 square foot retail piece on the first level, so it's vertically integrated. And those are all filled up. The final restaurant at Bricks and Bourbon, I don't know if you've heard of them. There's one in Stillwater and St. Cloud. They've been trying to open for about the last year. I mean, it's really kind of frustrating. I'm not sure. I mean, they were having problems finding equipment and things, but it should be opening soon. But overall, it's done really well, kind of in spite of the construction issues. But obviously, this project was here because of light rail. I mean, they wanted to be next to the station. And that is it.
Great, thank you, David and Julie. That is a lot of information. I really appreciate it. And it really shows, we talk about it in terms of numbers, but having these visuals and actual descriptions, that really puts a lot of heart into it. And that there's a theme that I heard, of course, with our ears, that these are thriving businesses, housing projects that could probably be successful other places, but they want to be near the rail line. And I get in front of testimony where I'm told by some that there really isn't a value. So I appreciate the stories and the proof that actually, if only for the efficiency, but also making housing more affordable because of transportation. I mean, I know I'm singing to the choir, but I just want to kind of put more of a point on it, that there are projects that would not be anywhere else, and there's some that want to because they see customers, they see a way to attract sales of units.
I mean,
Go ahead.
you've got your own unique set of circumstances
Yes,
and opus or opportunities, I would say. The Golden Triangle's been kind of the tough one for us because it truly is a business park. There's not a lot of housing up there. There's a little bit scattered here and there. So finding a developer that was willing to take the risk to kind of do that first groundbreaking project. So this, this Greco project is really kind of the big one for us right now because there is opportunity to transform that area. The jobs are great, but I think there's an opportunity to do more with other uses. And so that's one of the more exciting things we're seeing right now is with that development. As we know, other developers notice, and they take notice, and they start investing in other properties, and then things start to really change. So.
And I would say that when you get national investment, that tells me there's something more going on than your local economy. And so to me, when we started hearing from Florida and Pennsylvania and all of these, that means you're found out, right? People know about you, and I think that has a lot to do with light rail investment. And so expectations are different too. I mean, they don't always understand the affordability requirements in Minnesota. They don't always understand all the infrastructure complexities that we have here. So there's definitely some, pros and cons of that, but definitely light rail is why they're here, the nationals anyway. So I would offer that.
Commissioner Gotel.
And I had a more mundane question because I saw and heard some of this from both of you about making connections to the light rail, but also making connections, I guess, to other businesses that people may want to go to lunch and stuff like this. What are the difficulties and challenges you're facing in getting some of those parcels together to get done? Because I can already think about watershed and DNR and easements, and we hear a lot about that from the county board.
Yeah, I was working on something right before I came here, the Doran project.
Yeah.
They're putting in a trail, great. Dominion has a trail connection, goes right to light rail. There's a missing link. We got to get from there to here. And guess what? The grades don't work and nothing works. And so we're trying to brainstorm our way through a solution to that issue. We'll figure out something, but it's not been easy. So I would say those are the kind of pieces that have to come together to kind of make it really cohesive and connected,
Make it work.
but it's not easy.
People will find their own paths.
What was that?
People will find their own paths.
Correct, and that's what they've been doing in the interim,
Yes.
for sure, so.
Yeah, making those connections is critical, especially in areas like the GTA where there's, there's sidewalks, but it's really, it needs better connections to the station itself. But what I would say in general is we are pretty good at dealing with development issues. We do it
Yes.
every day, and every project, as all you guys know, they have issues. Watershed, you name it, there's a long list of things that we deal with every development, but we get it done.
We've been doing it for a while.
Exactly. I mean, the conversation about affordability isn't always well met, but we get through that, because a lot of developers come into town, they want to do market rate units. And our cities have goals trying to create affordability, so that's usually a pretty big hurdle. We're there to help fill the gap with the different tools that Julie talked about, tax increment grants from Hennepin County and from the Met Council, but we find a way to make it work.
All right, Mayor, you got
Thank you, Chair Zelli. Just a quick additive comment. It's great to hear about all this development, but the thing that struck me as we were going through this is that what do businesses really need now? They need workers. And light rail is going to provide the opportunity to get workers to jobs. I mean, the desire for a business to be near the light rail speaks exactly to that. And I think that's really a powerful piece of the argument. My strong support for light rail was that it's going to be a driver of economic growth. But I didn't anticipate the dearth of workers that were going to be there when we're pushing for this economic growth. The fact that this provides access to our communities for more workers, I think, is a tremendous opportunity.
really important point. It's not access to jobs as much as access to employees.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't hear too many politicians talking jobs now. It's workers.
Yeah. Mayor Spano, the last question, then we got to hear from the
Yeah,
project.
can you really, as quickly as you can, talk to us a little bit about the last decade and how development discussions have differed from, say, a decade ago to now? What are you finding that is different about the asks from developers, about the sort of climate of investment, the financing? Talk a little bit about how things are different in the last decade.
Oh,
I'm
not
going
a
to
small
say something
question.
quick,
Go
and then
ahead.
you're going to do something big.
I don't know. Go ahead.
Eden Prairie had not had an apartment project in years. I mean, we've had spurts of apartment development over the last 30 years, and so that was probably the biggest trend that we've seen over the last 10 years, or the last 4 years, is really just kind of the explosion in apartment development. And the appetite just isn't going away. I mean, it's at some point, they're going to hit a point where there's a glut in the market. But that's probably been the biggest thing that we've seen, and been, it's been a good thing for Eden Prairie, and it's happening all over. But prior to that, we were seeing a lot of the same single family, some commercial developments, some things around the mall, things like that, but hadn't seen a lot of apartment development. And that's both senior and general occupancy. So I think, but in terms of any other trends I've seen with developers specifically with, respect to finance and things, I haven't really seen anything change a whole lot.
The basics are the same.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
maybe
the only thing I would add to that is that we sure do ask a lot more of them, as a
Yeah,
city.
that's true.
If I looked at my career and how much negotiation, how long it took, 10 years ago to now, and the complexities of stormwater and environmental review and all of those things we do just regularly now were not happening 10 years ago. Some of it was, but not to the extent that we do it today. I would also say, Minnetonka, I would say, was an early adopter of affordable housing policies. We had one in the early 2000s, so it's not like it was new, but it wasn't like mandated every single time, and I would say that has changed totally. And developers are getting used to it, but we definitely have to bring money to the game a lot of the times, and that's just not something not all cities are prepared for that. We actually are, but not all cities can do that.
I raise it for a specific reason, and I don't want to, not expecting to have a deep conversation about it right now, but I do want to sort of put it on the table for future consideration, and it's one of the things that Met Council staff has heard us explore. I picked I said a decade, and I did it sort of deliberately, right? So the route that we're on was basically selected around 2012. I mean, we gave approvals, municipal consent happened in 2014, but between 2012 and 13 is kind of when the EISs were happening, and the routes kind of got settled out around that, as my memory serves me. It was about 2013, 14. And that's all well and fine. One of the things that I would love to see Met Council dig into, not for this project, because this project, the ship has sailed, but is engaging in a discussion with the FTA about the LPA process. And for those of you who aren't familiar, the locally preferred alternative, like this is the route we've selected in the basic station layout and all of that stuff. Once that's locked in, it's really hard to make changes in a project. And the reason I raise it is because, as you said, 10 years ago, it might have been commercial was the hot thing, in Eden Prairie. Now it's residential. And every city has a project, you can look at the West End for us, right, where we've had to change the mix there to adapt to the evolving economy, right? And one of the things that's frustrating about this process is once you're locked in, you're really kind of locked in. And I know Met Council staff has asked FTA, on our behalf about, well, could we look at different things with parking structures, because maybe we don't need as much parking as we thought we did before. And so I just wanted to raise it up for the group, that it is a conversation that I've had with NLC, National League of Cities staff, about they have some interest in maybe digging into kind of that and having that discussion. It is a piece that the transportation working group at NLC has discussed in the past at my encouragement. So just something to put on the table for future, when things slow down, Jim, and you don't have anything to do, maybe we just take on the FTA LPA process.
Easy.
Tomorrow? Okay.
Great, thanks for the point, and we shouldn't lose on that. And Julie, David, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
that
Thank you.
presentation. We appreciate it.
Thank
I know
you.
we want more updates, but first we should hear from the project. We're going to, Jim and John, if we have time. I'm watching the clock. I know you have a lot of information, but
All right, well, I think I'm in the control here. Thank you, Chair. Jim Alexander, Project Director. I've got it right here. So last time we met in February, we talked about a settlement agreement that we're working on with our civil construction contractor, LNJB. Well, we have that completed now. We had that signed on St. Patty's Day, appropriate for the green. So we have that done. So that first bubble or circle is complete. We have the schedule locked down, and I know we put a lot of consternation with the schedule out there. We said 2027 for revenue service. That is a projection at this time. You still need to get through these other circles to get to that date to understand where that's going to be. And I've got some dates for trails as promised, Mayor. I'm going to talk about trails here, pulling the Band-Aid off a little bit, but these are going to be hard to digest as well. I'll put that out, but we'll get that in a minute. So we have that settled, and as you recall, we had a cap of $210 million. That's our authority that we have from Met Council and through the ECCB, the Executive Change Control Board, for that settlement agreement. And we'll be in a process of going through that over really this year to get that resolved. So we're not settled on a number, and we hope to get that. And we hope we don't have to come back. We don't think it'll go over 210, but the chance it does, we have to go back to those boards to get that authority to go over that. So now we are talking with our systems contractor. Now the systems contractor, Aldrich Parsons Joint Venture, they've been pretty active on getting the schedule lined out based on what the civil is saying. And so we're pretty far along, but we haven't certainly inked it out yet. And we're in the process of coming to a similar agreement with the systems contractor. It won't be as complex as we had with the civil because there isn't a lot of previous work done. And so we think it'd be an easier process, but it's still a process we have to get through. We're hopeful that we can get through, possibly through the second quarter to get that resolved, and we'll see how that rolls. Right now we're looking pretty good, but there's still a lot of discussions to go. As I've talked before, what comes next after that is we need to figure out what's the testing going to look like, what's the other contracts going to look like. We still have engineering consultant, we have construction consultant, we have a quality management consultant, a lot of consulting contracts that need to be negotiated to take us to the end game on this project. And so that's that third circle. It's also looking at the testing program. I think I've talked with you somewhat about, since we are going to be looking at the west segment, west of essentially the Kenilworth Tunnel and east of the Kenilworth Tunnel, getting those done sooner than the Kenilworth Tunnel. We're looking at the idea of maybe getting some testing done earlier on those segments, which would allow us to try to be ahead of the game once we get to that tunnel piece. And there's still a lot of logistics to figure out. For example, getting a train out west and being able to maintain that without our connection to our Franklin facility. So that's a lot of logistics we're working out with our operations folks, but more to come on that as we get through. Ultimately, this will lead us to a revenue service date and an overall cost on this project. So far, we have said that the project could be as much as $2.75 billion all told. These components, essentially those three circles, will inform that. And we believe that we can stay under that, but we'll see how that rolls. And again, the 2027, as we said before, it's a marker. We hope to rein that in, but right now we're sitting at 2027, and we'll get that refined. I'm not really going to get to we're going to be opening up on September 2nd, 2027, or whatever the year is, until we get closer to it, because there are a lot of things that need to happen. So just kind of be prepared for that, but we'll advise you as we're moving forward. So I wanted to talk a little bit about schedule on trails, and this is a busy table. I'm going to go to the graphic here, and these dates are going to be hard to digest for some. What these dates are reflecting, except for one segment, and I'll talk about that in a moment, are substantial completion dates. And if you recall, it took us over a year to negotiate a schedule with our civil contractor. A lot of issues we talked about, the border protection, the tunnel. We have had to negotiate a new schedule for this entire 14.5 alignment with the civil contractor. And the outcome of that are, we have substantial completion dates for sites, if you will. And so where you see an asterisk on this map, those are reflective of those negotiated dates. There are actual completion dates separate for track and for stations that are earlier than that. And we actually see in the schedule that the contractor carries that some trail segments can be done earlier, but contractually this is what they're going to be tied to. So I'll just advise you, these are kind of tough dates to digest at this time, but we are going to work very hard to try to rein these in. The only difference here is the Minnesota River Bluffs Trail this summer of 2022. That is something we're working with our contractor to get that done. We have an issue with the drainage we need to clean up and some punch list items. That's where I'm a little concerned about throwing out some dates to you all, early, because we have punch lists, we have a lot of issues that come up that need to get resolved. In fact, we had agreements that need to get done. We're pretty close on those, just pending getting the things finished up. But we had Three Rivers and TC&W agreements need to be done before we could open these trails up for pedestrian and bike use. So what I would propose is that as we move through this, we will continue to update you on the dates, because one of the things I did hear when I was going to various city council meetings is we need a date. It's not 2027, but some of these dates are out there a ways, and we hope to rein those in. So if you could just be patient with us, we're going to try to get a lot of folks in the bike community. I'm a member of that. We're going to try to get a tour to kind of talk about the logistics. It just isn't easy to open up a segment of trail where you're working on that trail, you're working on freight rail, you're working on light rail in the corridor. You have drainage swales to build. You have all sorts of things to build in that rail corridor. It's just tough to say that, okay, we can open up the trail, hit the magic button there, and keep it safe for the users. So just ask for everybody's patience as we move through, because I know this is a very, very difficult subject for some as we're trying to navigate on this project. So I might pause there for reflection or comments on what I have.
I love the idea of bike tours, so there's a few of us that are really ready to sign up. Any questions? Jim, at this point? Mary?
Thank you. Jim, I know it's not your preference to open and close and reopen and have things like that for the public. It can be confusing. However, are there any opportunities to open temporarily, like for the warm months or something, especially with some of the dates that are far out?
Yes, we can look at that, Commissioner. I would say that might be a bit of a challenge, because during those warm months, the contractor is really getting busy with their work. They've got big equipment going through, and it's just, again, you look at the Beltline Bridge. I'd love to open up that segment going into Minneapolis because it's done. But going east of there, there's really no room to put
It's got to connect to something.
Right, yeah, it has to connect to something, but just even getting there, just the room, there's just no room to safely do that.
Chair Zelli.
Oh, go ahead.
Jim,
Mayor.
when you say 2027 and not to be set on that date, are you anticipating it might be sooner? Or are you prepping us that you're going to be, this might be even longer and that we need to be, that we may need to be prepping our residents for a longer date?
Mayor, I'm saying that we have announced earlier this year that we're looking at revenue service in 2027. I am hopeful we can rein in that date to be sooner.
Okay, thank you.
And some of these dates are by contract, substantial completion of those elements. So they could be improved, but probably likely, as we can see it now, not longer.
Yes, Mr. Chair, so I think I don't know if you all recall, but back in February, we talked about advancing that civil construction contract by about 34 and a half months. So we were going to be done in end of October of this year. We are now looking at September of 2025. So that impact just rolls. So I know those dates. I don't have solidified by contract through my contractors that we're having in 2027. That still needs a systems contract to be done. That schedule needs to be done. And plus that third circle needs to be understood in terms of how we get to that revenue service. But at this juncture, I don't see anything going beyond 2027 other than there'll probably be cleanup.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, go ahead, Rebecca.
Thank you, Chair Lally. So, in terms of the substantial construction, to what level of disruption would there be locally after that? If you understand my question.
Yeah, I would say it really kind of depends. There's typically punch list items that are minor elements, and by that time, we feel that we'd have the trail open for users, and it might be occasion where we have to have a flagger to get on the trail. It would be a minor inconvenience at that point.
Just minor, okay.
I think I've said that correctly, Nick, is that, I got to check with my director of construction because I don't want to
Thank
go
you.
over my skis here. But.
Right.
Okay, the reason why I'm asking is the city of Minneapolis in 2025, so just wanted to be as thoughtfully, intentionally specific as you could right now for the level of expectation.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, well, maybe we'll move on quickly to more slides. Just real quick, we are, this isn't a bike tour, but we have put out to do tours on the sites. I think they're all filled up, and we'll have to get this going again, but this is kind of an interesting, a lot of interest out there, and we'll just offer, I guess I checked my outreach staff first, but I think we could offer to do a tour with you all if you desired later this year and see how that rolls. I just have some slides just kind of talking about things that are starting to ramp up with construction with the warmer weather. There has been a lot of work going on over the winter time, but we'll start out Southwest Station where they're starting to lay the track at the station itself. This is looking out to the west. Eden Prairie Town Center is coming along really nicely. You kind of see the wickets taking place, those vertical elements that each station has their own particular design. We got some input from the cities as we develop those. I think they're looking pretty sharp. They're tended to really reflect kind of the nature of the surrounding area. Track work is really coming along out in Eden Prairie, and we have track essentially laid from southwest all the way up to our 9-mile Creek Bridge. Golden Triangles Station, Dave Lindahl talked about that area. Station is coming along. The wickets there you see, and kind of a computer orientation for the wicket there. This is 62 tunnel. Underneath, this is where the track is going to go. This has got direct fixation. The rails aren't placed there yet, but the rails will be placed on that on those members that you see there on both ends, both sides of the concrete plinths. A lot of retaining walls. I think we overall have 127 retaining walls. This is just north of the Opus area where we have a noise wall and a retaining wall. The guideway will be going through here. This is our longest bridge, the LRT bridge between Minnetonka and Hopkins, essentially linking Opus to Shady Oak. And Shady Oak Station coming along. And downtown Hopkins, I think this is kind of showing the gearing of the kind of historical nature of that area in downtown Hopkins. This is probably our premier bridge on the project, Sussex Boulevard, LRT bridge, 400-foot span that goes over the roadway and the railroad tracks. And here's some of that pedestrian piece there as we would go under Blake Road in Hopkins. And another pedestrian access that would link the trail to the station in the foreground once that gets built. And the southerly connector, this is for the freight rail connection for the Bass Lake Spur, runs east-west along LRT to the M&S that runs north-south through the Louisiana area. And the Kenilworth Tunnel, that's coming along. It's actually further along than this. We have kind of the topping slab already placed in this segment here. Or just kind of the busy goings-on inside the tunnel there.
There are a lot of concrete trucks out there.
There are a lot of, we're doing a Tremie pour, which is, yeah, a lot of trucks, about 8 to 10 foot thick concrete slab, over 100 feet in length. 21st Street Station and Bryn Mawr just starting to come out of the ground with the PVC conduit coming out of the ground. And a couple of images of the corridor protection, which is coming along pretty well. I guess they just had one in there. And this is one of our another complex area where we have 3 bridges we're building. You can see the LRT bridge in the main piece there just off to the left. We're building the west roadway, and we'll ultimately get to the east roadway. We're drilling shafts on that as we speak. And this is the last bridge that carries us to the link over by Target Field. And then just real quickly, I think maybe we talked about this before, but we did a change order with our systems contractor due to the delay that we determined it would be better to get a storage facility to continue to manufacture and get the main ingredients of the system work. And so this is really turning out to be a very good move because of just the commodity difficulties that are out there. And so the contractor's starting to bring those pieces of the traction power substation house that will come into that facility. And just some inner workings of the signal house. A lot of testing goes on in the factory. So I'm about a minute to 3 here, and I'm done.
Well, maybe if I can ask, we can go over 5 minutes because John, I want to give you a time to get some of the numbers, and then we maybe have time for a couple of questions. I'm sorry we're rushing this because we're learning how to be less efficient with in-person, but count for travel time. John, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I will keep this pretty brief. So, since we last met, these are the numbers indicating the inclusion of small businesses on the project, and it's also folding in the contract changes to the particular contracts. And one of the good things that I am happy to share is that the contractors have been working to include small businesses in these change orders. So they are maintaining their participation and adding more work to their current DVEs that they are working with so that they can stay ahead of it. So that is very good news. For the civil contract, these are the workforce participation numbers. And this is from February, so at this time, construction's very low, and there's not a lot of stuff happening over the winter time, so participation is a lot lower. I do want to share that they have been doing a lot of work these past couple of months to do outreach and engage the community for the upcoming construction season. So this is what they're doing, and we're hoping that we can add to these numbers and increase them as we go on into this next construction year. Systems contract is very low too. As Jim shared, there's negotiating and waiting on a couple of the big things, the substations, so it's been pretty low and they're trying to get in as much as possible. The Franklin station, Franklin O&M contract, that one is wrapping up here, and it's nearing pretty much completion. So there's really no activity going on. So I think that's all I have for the slides.
Any questions for John or Jim on what you've just heard? Go ahead, Mayor.
Chair Zelli, Jim, do we have an update on where we're at with the surface parking in Hopkins at the Shady Oak Station, beginning of development on that site?
Well, in terms of, Mayor, in terms of the layout of the parking, we believe we have a solution that we've shared with Hawkins staff, and I think we're pretty close to being there in terms of what it needs to look like. We trimmed the parking so it's not right up at Excelsior, and just kind of kept it closer to the station. And again, that south part would be deferred. So we think we have a good solution. As far as the developing piece, that would be more, I think, Kirsten, and talking to her about.
So how many surface parking spots is it?
Ryan, how many is it?
497.
497. That's down from just
It's
over
down,
1,000.
that's a lot. We're 4 square miles in Hawkins. That's a big piece of real estate that's being asked of us. So, yeah, if there's any kind of solutions that can be coming forward, especially as we're talking about major investments on this line to look at getting some density to that parking, that's a huge piece of real estate there. So, thank you, and thanks for the things you've done to cut down the pieces, going from I think around 1,000 down to 500. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Thanks. Commissioner?
Thank you. Just a quick update on the systems contract. Do we have kind of a vague date of when we're going to hear more definitively around that systems contract?
I think, Commissioner, I'll have to get back to you on that. We're kind of in the middle. We essentially are very close to the schedule. We think we have something laid down that we both agree to, but it's the cost piece, and the mechanism of how we get to an agreement on settling on that cost is still out to be resolved.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate the update.
Any other questions? Well, this was a lot of information very quickly. Thank you, everyone, for participating. We will continue to generate more progress, and we will generate information to track back. Thank you, Mayor Spano and St. Louis Park, for giving us our first in-person experience. Yeah, we're going to try to get on this cadence of every other month. I know this says July 6th, and we also know that that's a holiday week, so
Yes.
we just know we want to meet in July, and we'll figure that out. So to find also a host for an in-person place. So we'll try to spread the fun. Having said that, thanks everyone, and